This is Ballyfermot, situated in Dublin West. It's one of the most densely populated areas of the city. It was built by Dublin Corporation to meet a housing crisis in the late 1940s to early 1950s. In total, there are 6,431 households in the area. At its peak in 1966, the population was over 33,000, the size of the city of Waterford. Today, the population is over 21,000. With its accumulation of public housing over the last 40 years, few public amenities and little or no private sector investment, it's hardly surprising that it is officially designated a disadvantaged area. But is this how the people from the working class suburb of Ballyfermot see themselves? The community of Ballyfermot, through the voice of 6 people from different generations, will tell the story of how Ballyfermot has grown from the 1950s up until the present day. They will discuss their experiences and impressions of life in Ballyfermot. Billy French came to Ballyfermot as a young newlywed in the 1950s.
Ballyfermot to me was a wilderness, but I was used to Crumlin village. I loved fields and open fields, well, a lot of fields. But there was an awful lot of poverty among the people. There were people on differential rents, paid little or nothing, and they had been down in the mud and they stayed there. They were put out from the liberties in these places. They had lived in rooms that were well past their sell-by date, and they were 8 in a family. I saw them myself because I worked around the city. When I came to work in Ballyfermot as an apprentice bricklayer in 1947, as I said, Brendan Behan, whom I worked with afterwards, always said he was brought up in a Dublin that anything moved beyond Inchicore was either a cow or a culture. The good times and the bad times, but it's the people that makes it.
Margaret Canning came to Ballyfermot after marrying in the 1960s.
I came from the Liberties in the heart of Dublin, and I grew up there, went to school there, and I got married then. I came to live in Ballyfermot. When you come to a place like Ballyfermot in the 50s and 40s, when it opened, it was a huge place towards the Liberties because it was wide open. You could run up and down the hills that you couldn't, anywhere else because the city was all, built up. So that to me, as I said, when I was told you've got a house in Ballyfermot, it's like winning the lottery,
People in Ballyfermot then got a chance to buy their own homes. That was wonderful, because I was one of the first. And every 3 years the corporation would come along and paint your door and your window, identical to the people next door and to the other side of it. And they'd paint your rails their colour. And when I was buying my house, I was in isolation. They used to do one side of the railings before I got my wall, and they would paint the other sides of people. But by buying your own house, I discovered I could paint the door any colour I liked. I put a new door on it. And this began to emerge with a couple of people. And then everybody then started doing it. So we became individuals. And that's what life is all about.
Vincent Ballyfermot Jackson is an independent local politician from Ballyfermot.
Different generations would have their own perceptions of the area, but I think as a whole people would feel it's a nice place to live. People would have a very good sense of community. As communities go, it probably has one of the best sense of community that I've ever seen. And as a public representative, I represent a few areas and I work in another area which would have nothing like the sense of community that Ballyfermot would have.
Fiach Moriarty is from the younger generation of Ballyfermot.
I moved to Ballyfermot when I was 3 and lived in Rialto before that, but I grew up then in Ballyfermot, so it was grand. I made friends. I never had anything to compare it against. So though a lot of people would think of it as a disadvantaged area, I never would have been in that mindset growing up because it's just kind of what I grew up in. I thought it was grand, and I started hearing people on the telly giving out about it. But no, I had a good rearing and good upbringing in Ballyfermot anyway.
We were even beaten in school, and our parents accepted it. If you told your parents you were after getting 6 slaps and your hand was swelled up, they would say you must have done something wrong.
Joanne Breen is a student at Ballyfermot College of Further Education and has lived in the area all her life.
Well, I'm living here all my life, like 18 years, so I didn't live anywhere else, but I love growing up in Ballyfermot. I made loads of friends, all my friends live here.
Who like?
I went to Caritas College on Ballyfermot, but everyone else from my area went to St Dominic, so it was better that way because I made loads of other friends from all over Ballyfermot. Yeah, it was alright being in school. Like I stayed for the whole lot.
Joe Duffy, a national broadcaster, was brought up in Ballyfermot.
Growing up, everyone's childhood is, to a greater or lesser extent, enjoyable. I mean, it was my childhood, so I did have a very good childhood in terms of friends, in terms of family, in terms of activity, in terms of playing on the streets and playing in the backers, which is now Cherry Orchard or whatever. That was all fantastic, but I wasn't under any illusion that we were living in fairly difficult circumstances. Because educational standards were pitched at a certain level and the educational expectations were pitched at a certain level in Ballyfermot, which didn't include third level, which just didn't, and for the most part didn't include senior cycle and second level, didn't include leaving certificate, the inter-cert. Like my brothers have the group cert, which was the year below the inter-cert. You do it in the tech, and that's what most people had in Ballyfermot. If you got that far, you had a primary certificate, which was the end of primary school, or you had a group cert, which was 2 years in tech. And the number of people, thankfully it's changed now dramatically, which is absolutely fantastic. The number of people going on to leaving cert was relatively small, and the number of people going on to third level was infinitesimal for the population. When I was in second level in Ballyfermot, the issue of third level education just simply never arose, either in conversation in the class or conversation at the top of the class. We had a career guidance teacher. We all went to meet the career guidance teacher. We were given these blue leaflets from the Department of Labour, as it was at the time, about being a civil servant, a bank clerk, a firefighter, a carpenter, an electrician. The issue of third level just did not arise. The coming of the tech to Ballyfermot in the early 1970s, I think, was a magnificent move. The coming of the senior college then later on was another fantastic development in the area.
At the moment, I'm in the Ballyfermot College doing a higher diploma in business. But I just chose that because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I'm getting on grand in the course, so maybe that'd be where I go in the future, like a job around business management or something like that.
It is hard to explain how expectations just were not part of your vocabulary. They just weren't in your day. Your expectation was to get through the week. Your expectation was to get through the school year. Your expectation was to get a job at the end of the school year, or a lot of people dropped out during the school year. Your expectation was to try and earn money for the household, to try not be a burden on the household.
Over the last few years there's been a lot of money spent in the area as well, which has helped as well people's perception of the area. And the area does have problems like every other area of a size has, and a working class nature. And but I think as a whole people would find it's a nice place to live. You don't have in your midst 2 drug treatment facilities if you don't have a drug problem, but we also have a bigger perception of a drug problem than we actually have, because a lot of other areas have absolved themselves of their responsibility, with the result is Ballyfermot has to take in drug addicts from a number of areas to drug treatment facilities. So if you go up to the Ashland or the other Clunwira up the road here in Cherry Orchard, when you actually look at the profile of the people using the service, there's probably 30 or 40% of them from Ballyfermot. The rest of them are from outside the area. Drug addiction causes lots of other social problems. I'm talking about petty criminal activity, serious crime as well, and it also creates an awful lot of congregation of young people, and people become fearful when they know the certain areas where drug dealing would take place on an ongoing basis, or the perception that it's going on an ongoing basis would be very strong. And I'm aware of some of those areas myself, and I've been in constant contact with the Gardaí about that, and the Gardaí assure me they do the best they can, and they summarily arrest people, and there has been substantial drug fines made, but it's like a never-ending battle.
Then that's the drug scene. That's a terrible thing, young people. And you people have terrible pressures. We left school at 13 and a half, I left school. So there was no pressure on me to get through exams. I had to go back to college after I got married, The lack of respect, and people don't smile. Now, it was a happy place, but no one robbed then. Why? Because we had nothing. People have property now, and people want it. Again, I put it down to the drugs. But we've lost our old values of a gentleman now would raise his hat to a lady on the road if you had a hat. And if you had a wig, you took that off.
Does Ballyfermot have a drug problem? I think the nation probably has a drug problem. Well, in the sense of hash, cannabis. But if that were legalised, not that I'm pro or against that, but if it were legalised, there wouldn't be as much of a drug habit, so-called drug habit going around. But I mean, there is a lot of heroin going around. There'd be more in Ballyfermot than a lot of areas, but I think it's similar to Clondalkin and Tala and Crumlin, places, just normal working class areas. There is heroin, but I don't think it's as bad as it used to be.
Would you consider Ballyfermot to have a drug problem?
I wouldn't think it'd be any worse than anywhere else, you know. It would have, but I really wouldn't know a lot about it, just from what you'd hear from around the place. But I wouldn't think it would be any worse than anywhere else.
Yeah, there is a drug problem in Ballyfermot. Like, I've known a few people in my area that are on drugs, but like it's at a quieting down in the past while. Like, there's a lot of help places out in Ballyfermot, like the Ashland Clinic and all up the road, so it seems to be getting better. Since I've lived here, like over the past, say, 10 years, everything's had to getting better. Like, there's more community centres and there's more people helping Ballyfermot. It's getting more funding, so in the next 50 years, like, I'd say there'll be better changes like that. And they're getting the area done up now. It's lovely. Like, they're doing a lot of development in the area, so it's coming on grand.
Very good. But expectations, ambition, plans just didn't feature. Just didn't feature.
Yeah, I'm in Ballyfermot College at the moment, studying music management. Well, I hope to be able to live off music. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm kind of doing it more so and earning a small bit of money at it. So hopefully I won't have to work and I'll be able to live off being a musician and release a couple of albums. And this time next year I'll be a millionaire.
I suppose the expectations were that you get a good job, and I mean, you know, you get on reasonably well with the wider community, and you know, you would have ambitions and aspirations and stuff like that. So I mean, I was a carpenter by trade. That's what my working life consisted of in my early days, and I made a conscious decision because I like youth work. That's my full-time occupation now. I'm the manager of the youth service in Clondalkin, to go into youth work. So I went to Maynooth to study youth and community development. I gave up my work. And my expectations has always been, and have continued to be, that the community should have a range of basic services on its doorstep that in some way are relevant to the needs of the local community.
Yeah, and I know people who would, if they had relatives living in Chapel Izzard or relatives living in different parts of the city, would give their address, because there was this image that Ballyfermot was very rough. The whole issue of unemployment has changed dramatically. I know for my brothers and my children that the issue of unemployment, which was a big worry for my parents, for their children, just is not as big an issue.
I've never come across any difficulty that I'm aware of getting a job and being from Ballyfermot. I don't think people really discriminate anymore.
I've never had a problem getting a job, like, because of, like, I think they thought I was from Ballyfermot. Like I've got jobs, like, and there was never seemed to be a problem when I said I was from Ballyfermot. Like, I worked in Pennies in O'Connell Street. I worked in another place in town. I've always worked outside Ballyfermot, so it's never like hard for me to get a job. So I don't think there is a disadvantage.
Have we created an urban development of which we as citizens of Dublin can be proud of? More significantly, is the evidence presented here indicative of Ballyfermot citizens being proud of their Dublin heritage?
I don't think it affects that many people, because you probably know, like, that, you know, not everything you believe is true, not that type of way. So, but some people did give me like a few bad reactions, like, oh, you're from Ballyfermot and all rob cars and things like that. But it's not like that at all.
But I basically think Ballyfermot is really with you young people staying in and broadening out. You'll change it, and of course we're getting an awful ethnic population. That's going to change everything. Old values is going to go and new ones will come in, you know.
You know, Tala and Clondalkin and people I know from there, it's just another area to them. But I've come across people from Blackrock and, well, more maybe affluent places who might have a bit of a bad attitude, which is understandable, seeing as it's been in the news a lot, for the worse. But people, yeah, a lot of people have a bad attitude about Ballyfermot, but if a lot of those people are people that wouldn't be ever in Ballyfermot, so if they came down to Ballyfermot and looked around, they might see a different story.
I would find Ballyfermot a very caring place from my own experience, and through sickness or times like that, people would always be there for you and call and see if you needed anything, or people that you would be involved with, people that you would meet on a daily basis. If you went up to the shops, if you felt lonely and you came out and went up to the shops, you'd meet somebody who'll stand and talk to you and say, you know, how are you today, or say, did you hear anything, or, you know, something like that.
I think Ballyfermot, due to its close proximity to the city and to the type of community who lives here, has a great future, and it's a place that, you know, I'm very proud to have included in my name in 1991, Vincent Ballyfermot Jackson. It's a place I've lived in all my life, and please God, I'll continue to live here into the future as well.
We've come a long way as a nation, and Ballyfermot reflects the nation.